Okay, 75A at the top, 5 lines from the top. Lo yomar l'mchaver, you can't say to somebody, Halveni kor chitin, lend me a bushel of wheat, v'ani aten l'cha lagarin, and after the harvest, I'll pay you back with my, I'm expecting to harvest some wheat. You can't do that. That is rabbinic interest because the value might go up, right? You're borrowing something today, it's worth $10. When you pay it back, it might be worth $15. So that is a rabbinic case of interest. But you can say, Aval Omerlo, you can say, Halveni Achiavo Bini. You can lend me wheat now. I'm waiting for my son to come. He's going to help me, bring in the wheat from my storehouse, from my storage locker or something. I can't do it myself. The difference here is I already have this wheat. I already own it. I can't access it now, so I'm going to pay it. I'm going to give it to you once I can access it. Right now, I have this, but it's locked and I can't find the key. When I find the key, I'll pay you back. That's okay because you already have what you're paying back. So it's as if, the lender is already taking payments because there's something that exists already. So we don't consider the price rise to be a problem. Vihil says no, we don't allow this. He doesn't accept this since it exists already. It's not interest. He says no, that's still, you're not giving it over yet, and when you give it over, it's worth more, so that's still considered interest. Similarly, Hillel said, a woman can't lend a loaf of bread to her friend, unless she assesses, this loaf of bread is worth $5, right? And then next week, when you pay me back, maybe the price of bread went up, so pay me $5 worth of the loaf. Don't pay me back the whole loaf, which is now worth $6, because the price might go up. And then that turns into interest. So if you have one saw of wheat, you can lend one saw of wheat. Sasayim lovas sasayim. If you have two saws, you can lend two saws. In other words, like our mission described, if you already have it, the borrower already has it, but he can't access it, or he's not, for whatever reason, he's not giving it to you yet. That's okay, because you've got it in the bank. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer, no, even if you have one, the borrower only has one saw of wheat, he can borrow 100 times that, because each saw, it's not like you're making it a security, right? It's like since it's only rabbinic, we can say each saw that he borrows can be measured as it were against the one saw that he owns. So it's kind of reminiscent to me of redeeming maser, right? Where you can, put a lot of maser onto one coin. Tony Rabchia Rav Yitzchak, supporting this idea of Rav Yitzchak's, Tipas yayin ein lo, tipas shemen ein lo. Even if you don't have any wine or you don't have any oil, you can if you don't have, then you can't borrow. So the Gemara infers from the language, if he does have even just a drop, lova olav kamatip, and you can borrow barrels of wine against a small amount of wine. So that supports Rav Yitzchak. Okay, back to the Mishnah of Hillel. So Hillel doesn't allow, even if you do have the goods to be returned in your possession already, you still can't borrow for later return. Rav Nachman says, yeah, we rule like Hillel. But we don't rule like Hillel. We rule that you can borrow against something that you already have. Hillel used to say similarly in the Mishnah, Lo talve isha, a woman can't lend a loaf of bread. And unless she assesses it first and then takes the same amount, so the same value in repayment later. Well, Rabbi Yehuda says Hillel. This is Hillel's. This part of the Mishnah is only Hillel. You can borrow a loaf of bread and give back another loaf of bread later on. And we don't. So according to Rashi, It doesn't, this is not a business loan. This is I'm borrowing a cup of sugar from my neighbor or a loaf of bread from my neighbor. Um, People don't, I'm not gonna go and look at the price of sugar when I go return you the cup of sugar or bread or whatever. It's people aren't particular about that. Um, Ravina also said, "B'nei chavura makpidin zel zeh." If you have people in a group who are very particular with each other, they're very exacting, over they'll end up being over certain prohibitions, Torah prohibitions. Um, if they're not if they're not generous, they'll violate the following things. Mishum mida, talking about Shabbos and Yantiv, like if you have a potluck and everybody says, you can only eat as much as you brought. All right, so mishum mida, so people will be measuring. Mishum mishkal, they'll be weighing. Mishum minyan, they'll be counting. Mishum loving and paring, they'll be like borrowing and paying back, right? Because like I'm still hungry, so let me have some more cholent, and next tomorrow I'll bring you a cookie. B'Yom Tov, and these are all on Yom Tov. And presumably on Shabbos as well. Ukedivrei Hillel af mishum ribis, and if you go by Hillel, then there will also be over on ribis, because the same thing. Like if you eat too much and you're going to pay back later, then that you could have a problem with ribis because the price may have gone up in the interim. Torah scholars can borrow from each other with interest. This is a bit of a strange statement. So we clearly can't be talking about actual interest, like paying back more than you borrowed. We Tosfos says we should have perfect line. Not sure where I saw this, but the idea is that we're talking about like small favors that they give each other when they're doing loans. My Tama, why are they allowed to do that? And typically, you're not allowed to do that. They know that interest is not allowed. We know that they're just giving each other gifts. Why this doesn't count? If it's, well, I mean, look, if you're truly just giving somebody a gift and it's not in exchange for the favor of the loan, then that really is not interest, right? But we don't trust ordinary people to behave that way, right? I mean, if in the context of a loan you're also giving a gift, most people would consider that an inducement for the loan or a reward for giving the loan, which is interest. But if you're a Talmid Chacham, then you know that it's truly a gift. It's just that you like the person. And it's unclear if this applies to anything or if this applies just to domestic loans, but it's some kind of an out for Talmidei Chachamim.
We learned earlier that the whole issue of ribbit mukdemet, ribbit mucheret, that was not permitted. It was avakrit ribbit. That's the whole idea of giving a gift before in advance, and that was not permitted.
Correct. And now we're saying that if it's a small gift, you could minimize this by saying, well, maybe it only applies to domestic loans, like borrowing a cup of sugar, or maybe you could limit this however you want. But the plain meaning of the Gemara is that these these strict interpretations of the law don't apply to Talmidei Chachamim, because any gift that they give or receive, they know is truly a gift and not related to the loan.
Well, how do you define who's the Talmid Chacham?
I'll leave that up to you. I don't know. I guess I would say that anybody who takes interest under these circumstances maybe is not a Talmid Chacham. Also, Amarle Shmuel Avu Abari. Shmuel said to Avu Abari, "Hey, Halveni mea pilplin. I need to borrow 100 peppers. But mea v'yasrim pilplin. I'll pay you 120 peppers later. Varich, and it's okay to do that. And so this is Shmuel, clearly a Talmid Chacham. So what's he doing giving 20 extra peppers? It must be that he intends it as a total gift. I'm going to give you the 20 peppers anyway. And he's saying, when I pay you back, that's when I'm going to give you the gift. Again, this is very strange. I don't see how you can take this at face value. It really does seem like I don't even know what to say about it.
It seems contrary to everything we've been learning up to now.
Yes, it does. But what it's saying is that you can still give gifts. It's just that in the context of a loan, we have to be suspicious that the gift is not really a gift. It's an extra payment in order to get the loan. And the Talmid Chacham would not be suspected of such a thing. I don't know what to tell you. It's very strange. Marav. You can lend your family money for with interest. So as an educational tool to show them, how ruinous interest can be, right? So it's like you want to teach your kids about the dangers of the marketplace, charge them interest and let them feel how it hurts when you have to pay back more than you borrowed. So that's presumably the loan isn't a real loan, it's just an educational tool. V'lav milsi, but we don't rule that way. Mishum da'asi lemisrach, because they might like the idea. They're like, if I see what it's like to pay back interest, maybe I should lend with interest so that I can be on the receiving end of that, which is profitable. So that's why it's not a good educational tool, and we don't allow it. Now the next Mishnah. Work for me today doing weeding, and I'll do it for you, later. I'll do the same work for you later on. That's okay. And adorim mi ve'adorimcha, or dig for me and I'll dig for you later. That's okay. V'lo yomar lo nakeshi mi ve'adorimcha, you weed for me today and I'll dig for you later for your payment, or vice versa. Adorim mi ve'nakeshimcha. We don't allow that because the value of one might be different than the other. Koime garid echad, koime revia achas. And when we say, what does later mean? Like a day in the dry season, the days are of differing lengths, right? And if I say I'm going to work for you all day, meaning daylight hours, then we consider like the whole winter to be, a short day, but the same, more or less the same. And the rainy season, sorry, that's the dry season, the summer, and the rainy season, we consider those days to be about the same length. So when we said above that that you can exchange days of work, it has to be in the same season, because if I work for you a short day in the winter and you work for me a long day in the summer, the value of your labor is obviously more. So that's not permitted. So therefore, yeah, as I just said, you can't say like plow with me in the dry season and I'll plow with you in the rainy season. And so this is not really to the length of the day, but the difficulty of the work. Right? It might be easier or harder in one season or another season. So the value of the work has to be more or less the same. Rabbi Gamliel Omer, Yesh Ribis Mukdamas. We saw this before, I think. Rabbi Gamliel says you can have early interest, Yesh Ribis Mucheres, and late interest. Kesa, how does that work? If I want to borrow money from you, so I send you a gift and say, you know what, I'm sending you this gift because next week I'm going to come and borrow money from you. That's early interest, not permitted. And lava hemanu, what if I already borrowed from you, and I already returned the money, so we're done. And I send you a gift. Thanks so much for the loan. Here's a gift. Right? Even though I've paid it back already, that's late interest. So neither of those are permitted. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Yesh Ribis Devarim. You can have interest that's not monetary, but just verbal. For example, Lo Yomer Lo, Da Ki Ba'ish Ploni Mimakom Ploni. I'm giving you some interesting, if pardon the pun, interesting information or useful information, right? So, which is valuable to you for some reason. So that even that is considered interest, even though there's no physical item of value changing hands. Who is culpable for an act of interest? Hamalda, the lender, Halova, the borrower, Arev, the guarantor, and the witnesses on the loan. And the rabbis say even the scribe who records the loan, records the contract, over mishum lo sitein mishum al tikach meito. You have several violations. Lo sitein kaspacha as kaspacha lo sitein beneshach. Not don't give your money with interest. Umishum al tikach meito is another verse. Al tikach meito neshach v'tabis. Don't take interest. Umishum lo tielo kanosha. Don't be a creditor. Umishum lo tesimun alav neshach. Don't charge interest. So the Torah repeats itself. Umishum v'lis never lo titein mishal. V'yareis malakech ani Hashem. And by charging interest, or even by being the witness, or participating in this at all, you are violating, you're participating, or you're enabling somebody to violate the laws of interest, so you're culpable as well.
Tell me, and it's when we mentioned before, when we say there's verbal interest, yesh devarim. Why would that, if that's true, why wouldn't that apply to shidduchim, for instance? People are discussing things about other people, giving them interesting information. This one came from this family. Maybe is that not interest? I mean, according to what we.
Yeah, but it has to be in the context of a loan. I can give you things, right? There's nothing says I can't give you a gift. Certainly, I can give you a gift, but I can't give you a gift in return for lending me money. That's
no. I'm talking about the next thing. Yeshu b'devarim. We're talking about verbal interest.
Yeah.
So if one's saying, listen, I know this person came from this place, so
no, I think what it means is you're giving me that information in return for the fact that I gave you a loan.
Oh,
that's what's prohibited.
Oh, it's tied to a loan?
Yeah. Otherwise, you're right. Like, why would that be interest, right? Interest, if we're talking about interest, it's in return for a loan. So what the Mishnah is saying is not only tangible things can be interest, but intangible things can also be interest for a loan. So I lend you $100, and you say thanks for $100 for the loan. Guess what? Here's a stock tip for you. That's similar to you giving me a gift, even though the gift is tangible and the stock tip is intangible.
Oh, so it's tied. Okay, it's tied to the loan.
Okay, on to the Gemara. Tanya, we have a brayso. Rabbi Shimon Yochai Omer, Minayin l'noshu v'chaver roman. And if you you're claiming a debt of $100, ve'eno ragil lahaktim lo shalom, and the borrower, he never said hello to the lender, right? Before they never had a social relationship. They would pass each other in the street and not acknowledge each other. And now all of a sudden, there's a loan between them, and also hakdim shalom. You can't start being nice to the guy. Talmud Lamar, because Torah says neshach kol davar asher yishach. You can't take neshach or anything that is taken in interest. So kol davar means afilu dibur asur. This is reinforcing the point of the Mishnah that interest in the form of something intangible, even verbal, is forbidden. Okay. So the Mishnah said all the people that are involved in the loan, they all transgress. Amar Abaye, Malva or Bekulan. So not everybody is involved in all of these things, right? The lender is culpable for all of the things we mentioned. Lova over Mishum lo tashich lachicha ulachicha lo tashich. The borrower he's culpable in these three things. Lo tashich lachicha. Don't pay interest to your brother. Don't and ulachicha lo tashicha is another verse saying the same thing. And v'lifnei iver lo titein michshal. And you're also putting a stumbling block before the blind. In other words, you're enabling the lender to collect interest by paying him interest. So you're also not only are you forbidden from paying interest, but you're also culpable in enabling the lender from collecting interest. And what about the guarantor and the witnesses? Their only transgression is don't place interest on him. So because they're participating in the charging of interest. Although I would say like leaf naiver is also should also be you would think um, uh, would be part of what they're doing wrong. But apparently Tosus explains that he would have done it anyway, right? Even if the lender wouldn't have found witnesses or a scribe, he still would have made the loan with interest. So they're not really enabling him, but they're participating, so they're liable for lo tesimun alav nashach, for participating in the charging of interest. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, Malve ribis yos marvichim mafsidin. You might make money charging interest, but you're going to lose more. Elashem mesimim Moshe Rabbeinu Chacham v'Taraso Emes. Not only that, they also place Moshe Rabbeinu as a wise man, and his Torah is true. The Omrim Ilu Hayam Yodea Moshe Rabbeinu Sheyir Revach Badavar. You know what? Moshe probably didn't realize that you can have an economy based on interest. If he knew, the conditions, the business conditions, then he wouldn't have put it in the Torah. I mean, Ron Shalom put in the Torah, but the Torah wouldn't have said that that you can't charge interest. So I think that this is
it's a ganai. It's really a ganai.
Yeah. But
this is not praising. It's a ganai to them.
Yeah.
Euphemistically.
So this is Lashon Sagi Nahar, right? That
it's euphemistic.
Yeah. Lishna Ma'alya Nakat, Rashi says. It really, you're saying that Moshe was an idiot, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was a fool because you can make money this way. So people who charge interest are basically saying that, and that's not a nice thing. Kesser of Dime Amar. So the Mishnah had said that you what did Mishnah say about being a creditor? Kesser of Dimi, or of Dimi said, "Minayil no shebachavero mana v'yodea she'ein lo shas v'lav or alav." If you lend somebody money, lend somebody $100, and you're coming to collect it, and you know that he doesn't have it, right? Then you can't even like go visit him. You can't pass him in the street because Talmud Lomar lo tia lo kanosha. Don't be like a creditor to him. So in other words, don't try to collect if you know that it's going to be futile. That's forbidden by what the Torah says. Don't act like a creditor. Which doesn't mean that you can't ask for your money back. It just means you can't pressure someone if you know it's not going to be fruitful. Ravami and Ravasi Damri Tavayo, both Ravami and Ravasi said, Ki ilu dono b'shnei dinim. It's like if you do that, you are being mean to the borrower in two ways. Shnamar, here kavta enosh l'roshenu banu ba'eshu v'mayim. You have put on the saddle a man, a mortal, to really literally means at our head, but we're interpreting it l'roshenu to make us rush means a poor person, right? To impoverish us. We have bonavation line that's like going through fire and water. So fire and water is two metaphors here for difficulty. That's the result of approaching someone to impoverish him. meaning someone who has no money and you're coming to collect your loan. So you're judged in two ways, or you're like putting them through two trials, fire and water. If you're lending out money and you lend it out with no witnesses, this is a prohibition of putting a stumbling block before the blind. Because if I lend you money without a contract, right, without any evidence, then you'll be tempted to not pay me back. You'll say it never happened, and I can't prove it. So I should always make sure that there's some evidence of the loan when I lend you money. Rish Lakish says, Gorim klal aliyatzmo. If you do that, you cause a curse for yourself. Shenemar, te alamna, sifsei shaker, adovros al tzadik asa. These lips that speak falsehood should be silenced if they tell lies about a tzaddik. So in other words, if the borrower says it never happened, then people will criticize the lender. Like, what are you making up stories for? So by doing that, you're in effect falsely accusing the lender of lying and making him look bad. So that's on you. Rabbi said to Ravashi, Kamakayim Ravina Komadam Rabbanan. Ravina does everything that the rabbi said. Okay, well, it's kind of expected, but all right. They said that Ravina is particularly firm. Shalach le bahade panyo demali shapsa. He sent to him on Friday afternoon. Lishter limar asar zuze. Please, I need to borrow 10 zuz. Di isrami li katina di ara lemizman, because there's I have this opportunity before Shabbos to buy some land. Shalach, so he sent back a message. Nese marsade. I'll lend you the money, but there have to be witnesses. V'nichtav ksava, and we should write a document about it. Shalach afilu no name. What you're asking me? I'm a Talmid Chacham. I'm a respected person. You really need proof. You don't think I'm honest? Shalach he answered kol shekemar. Even more so. I need proof that I lent you money. The Tarid Begir say, because you're so busy learning all the time, it might slip your mind. And you might forget, and then that'll cause a curse to come on me for having put you in the situation where you'll deny the loan, and people will talk about me, or you won't pay me back, or whatever. So Ravina passed the test that he wouldn't lend money even to Ravashi, who you would think he would have trusted, without witnesses or a contract. Tana Rabban, the rabbis taught, there are three kinds of people who cry out but aren't answered. Elohim. And these are who they are. Somebody who has money and lends it, but without witnesses. As we just saw about someone who acquires a master for himself. We'll see what that means in a minute. Umisha ishto moshalasalav, one whose wife rules over him. What does it mean? You buy a master for yourself. What does that mean? Some say it means that you say that what you own, like you have, you seem to own a lot of properties. You say, no, it's not mine. It's a non-Jew's property. It's somebody else's. And then, you might tempt the non-Jew to act on that and say, oh, I have witnesses that said that he said this was my money or my land. Some say it means means you gift your property to your children before your estate, before you die. So once you do that, it's legal. Like they own it now and you don't own it. So you put yourself in jeopardy. Or some say Devish le Bahamasa, Velo Azul Masachrita. Someone who's Kona Adon Latzmo means, you've tried your luck in one town, your business isn't going well. So you should go try somewhere else, right? Maybe you're in the wrong business, you're in the wrong location. Try something different. If you don't try something different, you keep repeating the same failing strategy. That's Kona Adon Latzmo. That's someone who acquires a master for himself, as it were. In other words, he's subjugates himself to failure in the school. So that is the end of this chapter on interest. And tomorrow we will start Hasocher Sa'umnin, which has to do with hiring workers.
The Gemara doesn't discuss umishi ishto musheret alav. I mean, that could be many,
Yeah,
that
I
could
guess.
mean
I mean,
many
it doesn't give
things.
any examples, but I think the plain meaning is not hard to discern.
Well, yeah, you could interpret it in many ways. I mean, I
I
understand the
suppose.
plain meaning, but I mean, you could interpret it in many ways.
Yeah, you would. It's true. You would expect there to be some stories about that, but you're right. It doesn't. It just kind of mentions that in passing, accepts it at face value or what have you. Yeah, it is a little surprising that there aren't any good juicy stories about that.
Refresh for me. What's the meaning of Lishna Ma'alia?
It's like Lashon Sagi Nahar. In other words, you say the opposite of what you
Okay.
mean because it's a cleaner way to say it. Like Rashi on the Torah says, like several times, the Torah says behema asher lo tahorahi, right? An animal that's not tahor, rather than saying behema tmeya, right? So it's just a nicer way to express yourself. Really, I would have expected Rashi, the way I understand what he's trying to say, is lashon sagi nohar, which is a euphemism, right? Which is saying the opposite of what you mean, because you don't want the words to come out of your mouth of something nasty, right? Like Moshe is not wise. Yeah, it should be. I would have expected to be Lashon Sagi Nahar, so I don't know what to say about that. But I think the implication is that it means the opposite of what you're saying.
Ma'alia usually means better or good or
Yes,
higher quality.
right.
Yeah, I understand.
Right. So that's that would be like saying lo tahora instead of tamea. That would be a lishna ma'alia to my way, as I understand it. I'm not sure what Rashi is getting out by using that characterization here.
I would have expected, like you said, Sagi Nohar.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's
Okay.
yeah, it seems like Rashi is being, a little less than exact or specific. As they say, Lule demistafina, I would say that that's what's happening here. Okay, we'll see you all tomorrow. We'll start the sixth parak.
Sure.